Could a familiar face here in Colorado suddenly play the villain to its former hometown fans? Could Nikola Jokic's window with the Denver Nuggets and his time here in Colorado be coming to a close quicker than we think? And could the dunk contest be saved by a flurry of NBA stars in the very near future? All things to come on today's rundown. And we begin in the NFL, where it is officially mock draft season. The scouting combine is just a few weeks away. We're about a month away from the meat and potatoes portion of free agency in the NFL. But mock draft season waits for no man. And the fruitless and sometimes tiring exercise that some may view it as of putting together countless projections of experts and sports figures and media members alike, trying to get inside the heads of NFL coaches and GMs and front offices to predict what they're going to do in the upcoming NFL draft this April, and how quickly it can change from day to day, from week to week, and from month to month, can drive some people crazy. But I, for one, find it fascinating because rarely do you get such an influx of opinions and knowledge and background information poured into a singular subject over such an extended period of time. And you get to watch how it tracks, like I said, day to day, week to week, and month to month. And a lot of times, all of the prognostication that comes over that time ends up taking a hard right turn on draft night in late April. But for now, we only have what we can go off of. And as Daniel Jeremiah has pointed out, one of the NFL's premier draft prognosticators in his latest mock draft 2.0, he has some interesting names going maybe earlier and later than some would have expected. The Titans, with the first overall pick, take Abdul Carter, the fantastic edge rusher out of Penn State, which means that they would not go two different ways. They would not take a quarterback in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and they would not be talking about Travis Hunter when they reference a generational talent that their front office said they would not be passing on. Cam Ward goes number 2 to the Browns, who initially had been mocked to take the likes of Travis Hunter or another quarterback off of the board. The Giants land Travis Hunter at number 3, which means that they are not going to immediately be in the quarterback market after parting ways with Daniel Jones, and they'll continue to roll with Drew Lock and the like, or maybe they pick up someone in free agency. The Patriots take Will Campbell. The Jaguars take Mason Graham. Shedeur Sanders, the Colorado product, falls all the way to number 6 with the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that he's been closely linked to, owner Mark Davis, and has been seen in Las Vegas and at Raiders games and things, making appearances. Deion Sanders has obviously made comments about that. That would be a perfect stylistic fit from a brand and a lifestyle standpoint for somebody like Shedeur. Tyler Warren, one of the top tight end prospects in the draft this year, goes all the way at number 7 to the New York Jets, who will be parting ways with Aaron Rodgers and in theory could maybe be in the market for a quarterback if one fell to them. But they don't go that direction. They go with Tyler Warren, who many have speculated would be a good target for the Broncos. He goes nowhere close to number 20 at number 7. So if you skip down to the Broncos at number 20 in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, he has them taking the same position that the Jets win in tight end, but it's Michigan product Colston Loveland. And the debate between Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland has been one of a stylistic choice. Both tight ends offer great skill sets. And I think you kind of try to split tight ends nowadays into two different categories, like a Travis Kelce or a Rob Gronkowski. One obviously more leaned into the blocking element of things, and that would be Colston Loveland's comparison if you ask Joel Klatt and others. So the Broncos take a tight end, and then the Steelers right after that take Boise State running back Ashton Genty. That's another name that the Broncos have been mocked pretty significantly to take and would fit a pretty significant need that the Broncos have after the disappointing outing from the running back room headlined by Javonte Williams. So I want to ask you, and I want to get to your comments at the end of the show, what would you make of Colston Loveland's selection at number 20 for the Broncos if the board fell exactly the way that Daniel Jeremiah listed it and Tyler Warren is nowhere near available? Now, you could say, hey, I think the Broncos should trade up for a tight end like Tyler Warren out of Penn State. And if that's your option, then sure. But you have to remember that comes at a price. And moving up from 20 to 7 would certainly not be a cheap one. So, in my opinion, if you're asking me, my first thought when I saw Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft there, I actually think I'm okay with that. And it's not that I don't think Ashton Genty has the potential to be a significant product in the NFL. I think that the Saquon Barkley-like comparisons, while maybe acknowledging some recency bias there because of what Saquon was just able to do with the Eagles, I think that they're fair. It's at least fair to comment and speculate that may be the case. I am very hesitant on first-round investments at the running back position. I think that with the strength at positions that this draft has outside of running back, we talked about defensive tackle with James Palmer yesterday, inside linebacker, wide receiver, tight end, especially in the first round, and maybe in the first 3 rounds. You could argue that. I think that taking a first-round investment on a running back, despite the fact that the need is that significant, and it is, because don't get me wrong, we all remember how painful it was to watch this Broncos offense as they continued at times to just not be able to find a way to consistently run the ball. They had the Pittsburgh Steelers level of inefficiency with the polar opposite level of commitment. The Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, were one of the worst teams in yards per carry in the NFL as far as rushing the football is involved, but they were one of the top teams in attempts. So they kept banging their head against that wall and were determined to cross the finish line inch by inch if that's what it took. It worked out for them on the front half of the season, and we saw how it collapsed pretty significantly toward the end and into the postseason. So I know that running back is an important need, but man, if you take your first round selection at number 20 and you select Ashton Genty when the running back position has proven to be a pretty boom or bust position, especially that high in the draft, but has also been proven to be a deep position that you can find later in the draft and even undrafted. If you look at the case of our friend Philip Lindsay, who came in undrafted in 2018 and then became the first undrafted player ever to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I'm not saying there's Philip Lindsays out there in every single draft. My point is, I think it's easier to find a running back that can exceed the level of production that the Broncos had in the running back room outside the first round than it would be at some of those other positions. And let's not, as bad as the running game was, let's not forget that none of us were thrilled about the tight end room of Adam Troutman and Lucas Kroll and the like, okay? So and this is hard for me to say as a proud card-carrying Michigan State alum, I think I would be okay if Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft fell the way that it fell, and Tyler Warren was not an option without trading up significantly. At the way that board fell, with them taking Colston Loveland over Ashton Genty. And I don't think that's how I felt maybe a month ago, but I do think that sometimes we get swept up in recency bias with certain things, and we see what Saquon Barkley did with the Eagles, and we think that, hey, if we just take the best guy in the draft at that position, he can be our Saquon. Well, the reality is there's just not a lot of Saquon Barkleys. And the fact that he wasn't able to achieve a significant level of success with the Giants as a team, he individually did well when he was healthy, is a commentary and a testament to what was around him and the way that organization is run more so than it was on Saquon Barkley. And I do think that you could find that. You could even find the running back in free agency. If the Broncos went out and got Aaron Jones, who you'd have to pay a little bit more, is a little bit on the older side, but is somebody who you could trust at least on a short-term basis to carry that responsibility, and you invested in younger positions on the offense in the draft, I think that the Broncos could see a significant boost with that kind of setup, and you wouldn't have to risk the very valuable first-round capital on a running back, a position that, again, has proven to be a tricky one and a painful one if you invest high and it flops. As it relates to the NBA, Nikola Jokić turns 30 years old today. So while I'm certainly not the first, I want to make sure that I am one of the many here in the Colorado and the Denver area who welcomes Nikola Jokić into the era of their 30s. The second decade of your life has come to a chapter close, which is just another thing crazy for me to think about, that I am older than Nikola Jokić. To a degree that when I watch him out there on the basketball court, I think about whether or not I could ever be remotely capable of achieving some of the things he's achieved in the time frame that he achieved it. It makes me, like I'm sure some of you, wonder, what the hell was I doing with my life in my teens and 20s that I couldn't turn out, and couldn't put the work and the time and the dedication and the effort into becoming, somebody of Nikola Jokic's caliber. Frankly, I just can't cut it. But Nikola Jokić turning 30 in his birthday got some wheels spinning this morning from my perspective, and it made me wonder, how much longer is Nikola Jokić going to play basketball in the NBA? We know how fond he is of his home country of Serbia and how connected he is to his family and his homeland, and how much that intrinsically motivates him with everything that he does. And I've brought it up on this show before. If you haven't read Mike Singer's book, Why So Serious? The Untold Story of NBA Champion Nikola Jokić, you should, because it gives you a fascinating peek behind the curtain at exactly what makes the guy like Nikola Jokić tick and how much his homeland of Serbia and the people in his life that helped bring him up from that area mean to him and how much he dedicates, things toward them. So I know, and I think we all know, at some point he's going to want to go back home, and none of us could fault him for it. If he left tomorrow, he would already be the greatest Nugget of all time and will have given more to the Denver Nuggets organization than any player previously in history. So it's certainly not for me to sit here in front of this microphone and question something like that as it relates to Nikola Jokić. But it does make me start to question how much time the Nuggets have left to truly maximize the greatness of Nikola Jokić while they still have it. We always talk about title windows and championship windows, which both the Avs and the Nuggets, who've won titles in the last 3 or 4 years, are both still in, even if they might be shrinking. And let's not forget, Nathan McKinnon turns 30 later this year too. So you could have a similar conversation about the Avs as it relates to McKinnon. But with Nikola Jokić, he's got 2 more years left on his contract, at which time he would be 32, turning 33. He's going to be eligible for the largest amount of money that an NBA contract can provide at that time. And at that time, we could be talking about $80-85 million contracts in the NBA at that point on a per year basis. So how many more years left do we think Nikola Jokić will want to play basketball? He could play basketball into his early 40s, probably LeBron style, if he wanted, because his game is not inherently reliant on athleticism the way that it is for other players like Russell Westbrook and Giannis and others. But if he chooses to go home early by NBA terms, who would fault him? He has all the money and the generational wealth he could ever need. He won a championship. He's a multi-time MVP. He could retire a 5-time MVP. And would at least have 1 ring. No one could fault him for it. But I think the Nuggets have to be very cognizant and wary of this, that there is no real time to waste, because I could see a very realistic world where Nikola Jokić plays out the last 2 years of his current contract. Prior to that, he could turn down a player option and things of that nature. But I could see him signing something to the extent of a 3 to 4 year contract after that, which would put him at the conclusion of both of those contracts at the age of 36, and could I see a world where 35, 36, maybe 37-year-old Nikola Jokić just says, you know what? My job is finished. I have done what I accomplished to do. I reached the heights that I came to achieve, and I'm satisfied with that. I do. And I think that that's going to be a very sad day one day for Nuggets Nation. But it puts it into perspective of, the Nuggets getting bounced out in Game 7 with a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter last year in the playoffs by the Minnesota Timberwolves. That stings significant. If the Nuggets aren't able to make a serious title run this offseason or this postseason, and they get bounced in the second round, or they lose in the conference finals, it's another year where you have to pick up the pieces and throw them out on the table again. You have to re-roll the dice and hope that they fall your way again. And we know that Michael Porter Jr., after the extension of Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the next player up of that core 4 to be paid again, because he was the first, and the cycle's now coming back to repeat itself. And I believe that's after the conclusion of the 2026 season. But I mean, we really should be looking at it that before the year strikes 2030, before this millennium turns 30, the Nuggets probably need to have a serious shot at winning another championship, because Nikola Jokić has now turned 30, and it feels like we maybe only have 5, 6, 7 years left. And that's assuming he extends past his current contract, which I think he will, because I think that's another aspect of Nikola Jokić that gets kind of hyped up and maybe overplayed from the fan base, from the national media especially, and just in general, is that Nikola Jokić doesn't care about basketball. He just wants to go play with his horses and race and all of that, and just be back home in Serbia where he's, so fond of. And while I think there are elements of that that are true, there's usually shades of truth in everything or a lot of things. Um, I don't want that to overshadow what I think and what I have learned from watching him as long as I have, from being around that organization the way that I have, and frankly, from reading a lot of the behind the scenes insight that somebody like me and you would never be able to get from the likes of Mike Singer and others who have followed him intimately and detailed all of these fascinating things about what makes his brain work. He does care about basketball. He loves basketball. It's what he's dedicated his life to. And is it just a job? Yes. I mean, that's also true. But that's not to say that he is not fiercely competitive and cares about things like his legacy and his commitment to this city. And he's always tried to embody and has idolized the guys like Dirk Nowitzki and Tim Duncan, guys who sunk into the organization that gave them a chance and brought them to prominence and to greatness. And it wasn't the LeBron James, the new school type of player that hops from organization to organization and team to team, and yes, brings success to a lot of those places, but it means more doing it all for the city, the town, the community that brought them in the first place. So I think Nikola Jokić cares about basketball. I think he wants to play basketball and could continue. And shoot, I could be wrong. Nikola Jokić could want to play till he's 40 because this is his life and he's good at it and he is competitive enough to keep striving for greatness. So I could be wrong on that, but I would bet more likely than not that the likelihood that he plays basketball beyond the age of maybe 36 or 37 is pretty slim. And I think that's kind of sobering when you say like, hey, we've got 6 or 7 more years, including this year, to bring at least one more championship to the Denver Nuggets before the greatest player in the world leaves our front porch, and we have to try to start it all over again. And that's tough for teams to do. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Do we feel confident that that is going to happen? Am I crazy? Is Nikola Jokić? Do we think he'll play into the LeBron, age years of his early to mid 40s? And do we feel, how confident are we in the Nuggets and the core around Jokić to be able to get that done? And if not get it done, for Calvin Booth and the like, to be able to bring in the right pieces to do that. Speaking of bringing in pieces, the NBA might not have to bring in many more pieces because they may volunteer to do so as early as next year's All-Star break. We all know, and I tongue-in-cheek said it yesterday, that NBA All-Star Week is kind of a joke now. The All-Star game, no matter what they seem to do to it, it's in some ways maybe better than the like 212 to 185 games that we used to see in the East versus West. They've experimented with the format. After the passing of Kobe Bryant, they've manipulated the format, and now we have this like 3-team round robin in a first of 40, and it kind of very transparently broke up into like the OG old head groups led by LeBron James, to the young rising stars like Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum and the like, to the international crew, the gauntlet guys of Jokić and SGA and Luka and Giannis and Joel Embiid and what have you. So it was very transparent what they're trying to do there. What's also very transparent is, by and large, it just doesn't seem to be working. Now, they still get a decent amount of eyeballs. I think the NHL and Major League Baseball in a lot of ways would kill to have some of the angry eyeballs even that the NBA is getting for some of these things. But by and large, the product is not that great. And the dunk contest, which used to be, when I was growing up and even before that, used to be a spectacle event. I mean, Vince Carter putting his elbow over the rim, even fasting forward to Dwight Howard being Superman and blowing the candle out on the top of the rim there, and just all the spectacle and the sizzle and the show of athleticism and personality that it used to be. It used to be awesome, and it's kind of become a joke now. And I don't mean to say that as a disrespect to somebody like Mac McClung, who's a G League level player that's gotten called up for 3 years in a row now to compete and has won, in large part, not that he's not a very talented individual to do it. I mean, he jumped over a car to dunk a basketball. But the biggest reason why I think he succeeds in it is because he freaking cares. He cares, and he puts that level of effort into it. And frankly, the fact that we haven't, we've gone through LeBron's now basically 20-year NBA career, and we haven't seen him compete in a dunk contest as someone who's supposed to be the face of the league, the next Michael Jordan, the ambassador of the brand and all that. The fact that we never saw him with his freakish athleticism, his popularity, his gravitas compete in a dunk contest in a meaningful way, and we haven't seen it year to year, to me is kind of embarrassing. And I think that it's a easy thing to point to, or a figurehead as to what I think has become a decaying problem in the league. And it's that I don't think the NBA stars, and I heard Stephen A. Smith echo a similar sentiment this, that I don't think that the NBA stars truly care enough about the product of the league that has given them this generational wealth and platform. I think that that's evident when LeBron James pulls out of the NBA All-Star game with some kind of, tightness or soreness in the knee or the ankle or whatever right before the game, which ensures that he's not going to be replaced. So taking a spot from somebody who could have been deserving and willing and eager to play in that game. And then, as if that wasn't enough, let's not even put on the uniform for the team photo. These are just the things that make me want to bang my head against a wall. And then you have to, Anthony Edwards was scratched at the end of at the 11th hour for some conflicting reasons, whether it was illness or injury or this or that, or just didn't want to, what have you. And then for the players that do participate, you get to watch the likes of everybody's favorite Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama making a mockery of a skills competition that's already existing, throwing the ball up in the air without trying to actually shoot it, trying to circumvent it for time reasons to win, which supposedly was Victor Wembanyama's idea, but it has Chris Paul written all over it. But back to the dunk contest, it's silly. And I think I'll believe it when I see it, but I think there's at least a chance that some of that could change as early as next year, as we saw Ja Morant, who's been a polarizing NBA figure in his own right in recent years, watching the dunk contest put out there on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Mac, meaning Mac McClung, might make me decide to dunk. And then immediately replied with Zach and AG, what's up? You'll remember back in 2016, Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon gave us probably the last good example of a dunk contest in the NBA. Zach LaVine won the contest. I think Aaron Gordon should have won it, and that's not just because he's one of my favorite Nuggets of all time. I think that was kind of a universal opinion, but both guys were deserving. So you have an NBA star in Ja Morant watching the dunk contest saying, you know what? This guy might make me get off the couch, because I think that don't kid yourself. In an ego-driven league like the NBA, you don't think some of these superstars are looking at a guy like Mac McClung get showered with praise and all these things, and they're sitting there going, this guy can't even hack it on an NBA roster. He's a G League player, and he's the best in the league. I might have to get up off the couch, I should say, and little brother this guy a little bit. And I think that's kind of what Ja Morant was hinting at with his tweet. And if that's the case, good. I want that to be the case. And he tagged Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon in the reply there. Giannis quoted Ja Morant's tweet before any of those guys could respond and said, if you do it, I'll do it. 100%, I'm with you. Giannis is one of the biggest physical freaks in the NBA. So you have Ja Morant, then Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then finally, our guy, Aaron Gordon. I still got some expletive. He's still got some stuff, that 00AG on Twitter. He says to Ja Morant, and man, if you're starting to tell me, which I did not watch, I watched highlights and cut-ups of the dunk contest this year. I did not, nor should you, have wasted a lot of your time with the festivities of All-Star Weekend in the NBA. But if you were to tell me right now, on whatever it is, February 19th, Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, that next year's dunk contest, at a minimum, was going to feature Ja Morant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and our guy, Aaron Gordon. If you told me that right now, I would block that date off on my calendar in 2026. You could do it right now. I will watch. And I think that in and of itself should show how easily this problem in the NBA could be fixed. It really could. All it takes is effort and participation. Why do we think people love the Four Nations face-off so much? Because you have NHL players who have less availability to money, although their contracts are guaranteed. They have significantly smaller contracts. And yet they are going on an international level to play on these teams that are not their own, and they're giving it their all. They are willing to bleed and die, it seems like, especially in the case of USA and Canada, for the outcomes of these games that mean nothing to their NHL season progression and longevity and their post. In fact, it could do more harm than good to their postseason aspirations, as we saw the Vegas Golden Knights dealt with some injuries. Team USA has dealt with some injuries and some illnesses, and Team Canada's in the same boat. So if they're willing to do it, why aren't the NBA players? And who knows? We could see a situation where that's the case. I'll turn it to you now, though. I would love to hear your comments and your feedback on anything that we've discussed today. It could relate to the NBA and the dunk contest. It could relate to Nikola Jokić and the window for the Denver Nuggets as it relates to bringing a second championship before he's over. Dom says, I wouldn't hate getting Colston Loveland. I agree with you. I wouldn't either. Now, I think that I would say that about a handful of players, though. Like if they drafted Ashton Genty there, if that mock draft of Daniel Jeremiah was flipped and the Broncos took Ashton Genty at 20 and Colston Loveland went 21 to the Steelers, I don't think I would be disappointed that they got Ashton Genty. I think I would be nervous, maybe a little bit more nervous. I think I'm going to be nervous anyways because I'm a fatalist as it relates to the Denver Broncos, and it's hard for me to reconcile the fact that they're like finally potentially good again. I'm still hopeful that it's not a flash in the pan. So I guess I wouldn't. Either player would be great. I'm with you kind of on that there, but I think I would be more nervous with Genty than I would be with Colston Loveland. That's true. Ashton Genty may not be there at 20. We saw a meteoric shift in some of the pre-draft early mock drafts. We're mocking guys like Tyler Warren to the Broncos at 20. And now we're seeing him as high as 10. That's not accidental. That's coming from buzz that the likes of Daniel Jeremiah and these other draft prognosticators are getting with intel from agents, from players, from teams, from whoever, that is shifting them in that direction. These guys don't just, contrary to popular belief, not everybody in this business just throws things at a wall and hopes that it sticks. So especially for somebody like Daniel Jeremiah, who's as connected as anybody as it relates to the NFL draft and one of the more respected voices in that community, if he's showing a significant tick up to that degree, I think there's some fire behind that smoke. So it's true. Ashton Genty may on draft night not be there at 20. Wait and see until after the combine. It will change. It could. Again, we are going to see it coming up here toward the end of the month. Our own Andrew Mason and Cecil Lammy will be there live in Indianapolis for the scouting combine. And that is a chance. I mean, we saw the likes of a John Ross who broke I think he either tied or broke the 40-yard dash record at the time with like a sub 4.3 40, 4.22 or something like that. He wound up shooting himself up to a top 5 draft pick in the NFL, or top 10 draft pick in the NFL, and he did nothing with it after that. But you're absolutely right, Roy. The scouting combine can significantly impact the speculation and the perception of a player around the league. So for one, I can't wait to figure it out. I will be watching closely. I think that we have talked to death, and we will continue to talk about the positions of need that the Broncos have as it relates to tight end and running back and wide receiver and inside linebacker and probably safety and maybe defensive tackle as some tertiary and secondary needs there. But one thing is for sure, the Broncos are going to continue to step their way out of the Russell Wilson dead cap situation, which something I might want to get into tomorrow is that the NFL salary cap is projected to take a huge jump. Little subtleties for tomorrow that we can get into and how that might impact the Broncos free agency situation, their draft plan and the like. So the Broncos are going to have a lot of needs to fill, and they'll have a pretty decent pick finally to be able to do it. Lots of things to get into. Up until then, I will see you same time, same place tomorrow.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.